Come back! Come back! Come back!
Toodaloo,
You hit.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we're going to talk about a topic that can be complicated but necessary: the challenges some women face after a divorce. They'll share with us the hardest part of this process and how, even if they're no longer with their children's father, that relationship remains important for life. Because, well, after all, family is forever, even if sometimes we wish it weren't quite so much. Before we begin, we want to take a quick moment to mention something important. YouTube has updated its policies, especially regarding sensitive topics, and we've already received a few warnings, oops, and even a strike. So, to keep bringing you content, we've made a few adjustments. The humor and sarcasm might not be as obvious as before, but we're still here to offer you the best. Also, we may remove some videos or even all the content if necessary. It's for your own good, we promise. That said, I'll keep it short. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, leave us a comment. We truly appreciate it. And by doing that, you help us keep going. Without further ado, let's get to the content.
Hi, friends. Today has been a rough day. It's yet another step towards tomorrow and healing. And I just wanted to remind you that just because you stumble on a path, it doesn't mean you haven't made progress. And that just because you're having a hard time, it doesn't mean that this is the best it's ever going to be. Time has a great way of healing wounds, even the really deep ones that hurt. So just breathe and be, and it gets better.
Or things could get worse, because, let's be honest, that's usually how it goes. The thing about divorce is that it often depends on who the judge favors more. Although they say nobody wins in a divorce, the reality is that someone always comes out better. Whoever ends up with more assets and fewer debts clearly takes the win. In the case we're looking at today, we can deduce that the divorce happened after the age of 50. What does that tell us? That this man was about to retire, and just as he was seeing his pension on the horizon, bam, his wife decides to end the marriage. Unfortunately, this has become more common than one would like to see. After a lifetime of work, when you think everything is set for retirement, you find yourself without a home and, sometimes, without anything at all. So, yes, things might get better, but only for the one who comes out on top.
So I'm going through a divorce and I have adult children, and some of the things that I've noticed that adult children struggle with during a divorce that I think parents maybe forget or aren't even aware of are, one, that adult children are struggling during a divorce. Some of the things that they're struggling with are watching us suffer and struggle. Another thing that they're worried about is what the future looks like, family gatherings, family in general, the family unit. Also, they are worried about what happens when mom or dad gets sick. The burden is going to fall on them. What if one of them passes away? The burden's going to fall on them. Sometimes a parent will have a lot of things. Maybe they collect a lot. Who's going to take care of all that stuff if they pass away? I have to go through it all. I have to be the person who takes it all on, and that's a lot. So it takes the spouse out of the equation and it puts a huge burden on the child, and this is some of the things that they think about, and we need to be aware of that.
Now, the big question: who's to blame in a divorce? Statistics show that in about 80% of cases, it's the woman who initiates the divorce process. This makes us reflect on the challenges this poses, not only for couples but also for children. It's well documented that children who grow up in homes with both parents present tend to have better outcomes in various aspects of life. For example, studies show that children from intact families have a college graduation rate of nearly 40%, compared to 17% for those raised by single mothers. Economically, there are differences as well. Around 77% of millennials who grew up in two-parent households achieve middle or upper-class income in their 30s, while this only happens for 55% of those from single-parent households. Moreover, it's been observed that 45% of children in single-parent families live below the poverty line. Family Studies Institute. With these facts in mind, it's hard not to wonder, why is the divorce rate still so high? What can we do to reduce the negative impact these situations can have on children and their future?
Want to know what nobody tells you about divorce? Is that once you get married and then you procreate and then you get divorced, that human will be in your life forever because you procreated with them. And then you get married again, and now that human will be in your new spouse's life forever because you procreated with them. No one tells you about that. I'm telling you now.
That's why we've always said it. The most important decision in a person's life is choosing the right father or mother for your children. You can change jobs, cities, even partners, but you can't change the parents of your kids. So, be careful, both men and women, choose wisely. Now, in the case of men, things might seem a bit different because the kids almost always live with the mother, and fathers only see them on weekends, unless a judicial miracle happens. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes, dealing with a difficult ex can be a nightmare, whether she doesn't let you see the kids or turns them against you. And let's not even mention when you remarry and your new partner also has to deal with all of that. So, guys, take it seriously. Choose wisely, because once you make that decision, there's no turning back, and control of the situation could end up in someone else's hands. As we say around here, go to war with a helmet on.
The best advice I ever got from a divorce attorney was this. He said, listen, you could use me. You could hire me. You got kids. So you're either going to pay the money that you guys have, you and your soon-to-be ex-husband, you could either use that money and hire me, and that money will go towards my kids, or you guys could figure it out and cooperate and keep that money and use it towards your kids. And that forever seared into my brain. But I do come from a family of business people, and the last thing you want is an attorney. The last thing you want is an attorney. And trust me, I have a family full of attorneys. They even say you don't want to go to us. Like, we are your last resort. You don't want to use an attorney. You are blowing your money. You're fighting. You're being petty, and you got to just save your money. You got to be smart. You got to calm down, like take a breath. I don't know what to tell you, how to like figure that one out, but the last resort is you don't want to use an attorney. So we used a mediator, which yes, they are a licensed attorney, but it's so much more inexpensive than hiring an attorney. So long story short, their dad and I are in financially great space right now, great relationship because we didn't fight and we didn't lose money. Because everyone, the worst way to hit someone, I think, is in their pocketbooks. So take this advice however you want, but that's my advice.
Stop it. Get some help.
Of course, nobody wants a lawyer involved in their business until the divorce comes. Here's the thing. Almost always, when a man gets the divorce notice, it's the last thing he finds out about. What do I mean by that? The other person has already been preparing everything for months. Her lawyer has everything ironed out while you had no idea what was coming. That's why, if you're a man and you find yourself in the middle of a divorce, a lawyer isn't an option, it's a necessity. It's like going to war without a rifle. If you go in unarmed, it's clear you're going to lose. And in this case, they'll leave you plucked like a chicken ready for the pot. Now, take note. If you're going to see a lawyer, it should be to protect yourself, not just to unload your sorrows. If you go to defend yourself, they'll give you useful advice. But if you go just to complain, the advice may not be the best for you, but it will be for their pocket. We all know there are lawyers who, the longer the process, the better for them. So, if the divorce drags on too long, both of you could end up losing everything, when maybe it could have been resolved faster and without so much legal drama. So, Guys, before you get into that mess, think carefully and be prepared. Better to have a lawyer, but know what you're getting into.
I'm here to remind you that if you feel stuck in your marriage, there are a few techniques that you can engage in that are proven to save troubled marriages. Now, these are compiled from the top relationship experts. The first thing you have to keep in mind is that growing apart is an illusion. Okay, most people are still essentially the same. It's just our perceptions of each other change, and we start to project our past onto our partners. The truth is that couples come in and out of love, and there's really no magic in the magic. And that brings me to number 2. Find out what works. Okay, so what I mean by that is, what are the exceptions to your problems? What is different when things are good? What is different about the times when problems arise, but they just really don't bother you? Was it that you created a nice evening and treated your partner like you were on a date? Was it that you were thinking about things differently? Was it a different mindset? Were you exercising regularly and you just felt better physically? Identify real actions, behaviors, and circumstances that create loving feelings and write them down. Now, number 3, just do those things. You don't have to feel like it, within reason, of course. You don't want to betray yourself. But don't say, why should I have to do that, right? If it works, that's why you should do it. Keep in mind that in the beginning of a relationship, we act out of inspired feelings, but over time, we need to step up our behaviors to improve our perceptions. Inspiration comes from the connection that comes from our actions. Actions first, then connection, then inspiration. Number 4, build on the strengths. It's always better than dissecting weaknesses. Remember the 5-to-1 ratio by Dr. John Gottman? As long as you have enough positives in relation to the negatives, and there will always be some negatives, you'll be fine. So just ask yourself, what's good about this relationship and how can I expand that now? Number 5, implement a pattern interrupt on any destructive patterns that you play part in. So when you're facing a problem situation, just act differently than you normally would, or act as if you felt differently, because feelings come from actions, but behavioral actions will also change our perceptions and feelings as well. And finally, as long as you're not in an abusive marriage, close your exits. Now, this expression comes from Dr. Harville Hendricks, and it really means just making sure you have both feet in when you're working on your marriage. Your exits could be spending too much time on the internet, or it could be not being present, or it could be affairs. But as long as you're working on it, this is going to require your full commitment. So take a stand and keep the faith.
Let me tell you something. For me, what really ruins relationships nowadays is the low tolerance we have. It seems like we live in the era of, if something doesn't work, I'll just replace it with a new one. The same goes for relationships. Today, anything can be annoying. At first, it's all love and butterflies, but then it gets to the point where just seeing each other's faces becomes a reason to fight. Another thing that affects relationships is monotony. Some people feel trapped in the routine and get bored, feeling like time is passing by and they're not achieving anything meaningful in their lives. And if we add to that the fact that we often focus only on the negative, things get even more complicated. Nobody's perfect, and the truth is, any person can only offer you 80% of what you're looking for in a relationship. The problem arises when you start craving that missing 20% and forget about the 80% you already have. The result? When you go looking for that 20% in someone else, sooner or later you realize you're missing the 80% you had before. And that's why second relationships tend to have a 60% failure rate. It's like switching dishes at a restaurant just because you didn't like the side, but in the end, you end up missing the main course you left behind. And that's where we wrap up. But before we go, the questions are for you. What advice would you give to these divorced women? Have you ever seen a relationship fall apart once lawyers got involved? If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to keep creating more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video here on The Wall.